Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 13, season 2 of the Stand-Off with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live every Wednesday on Facebook throughout the season. Another interesting round, Richie, plenty of sin bins and upset, and another strong showing from young Reese Walsh. What did you think of the round?
It was had its ups and downs. It's certainly had some excitement in that Warriors game, a lot of tension. Also, a lot of talking points, a lot of sin bins that I'm sure we'll run over.
Yeah, definitely. And while we're here live on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m, you can also catch our show via our podcast on iHeartRadio at your convenience. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to cover everything you need to know in the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week, a review of the round, and our picks. We'll then answer some questions from you guys. And then we'll preview round 12 clashes, make our picks before ending the show with some Super League news, which we haven't done in a while. So that'll be good to do. Good evening, Simon. Good to see you here.
Hey, Simon.
Tune in to get your rugby league news, and remember to send us comments and questions throughout the show so we can answer them for you. Let's get into the top stories, Rich.
Let's do it.
I think first one is the passing of Bob Fulton. One of the original Immortals. I'll pass to you. You know a bit more about him than I do. He's a bit before our time, so I'll let you take the lead here.
Well, it's just a sad day in the rugby league community. Like you touched on, he's one of the original Immortals and a Manly legend. Was heavily involved in Australian setup and coaching Aussie. So, I mean, I know his loss is felt right throughout the rugby league community, and it was nice that Manly got to turn on a good performance to honor his passing.
Yeah, definitely. It's better than what the Tigers did earlier in the year. I think there was such a different cast of characters throughout the weekend, from players, media, who all had stories about Fulton and the impact he had on them. So it was, while I didn't get to see a lot of what he did, it was clear that he had such an impact on so many people. So a big loss for rugby league, and best wishes to his friends and family. Next bit of news, it's kind of been developing over the day, so this will be interesting, but the Raiders have agreed to release George Williams from his contract effective immediately. He had originally requested to be released at the end of the year, citing being homesick and wanting to go back to the UK with his pregnant wife. But the Raiders have decided it's best for both sides if they let him go right now. He's come out in social media and said that he contacted the Raiders mental health person and was highlighting that he wasn't having a good time and that he was shown the door. I'm hearing conflicting reports on both sides, so I don't really know where to stand, but what are your thoughts on this?
It's just a bit of a saga, isn't it? It's another saga in the Raiders season, and you don't really know who's in the right and who's wrong, because you've got different reports and depending on who you listen to. So first you had the media coming out saying that he's been released, and he wanted to seek a release via text message, and then he's hit back at that on social media, and there's been a bit of back and forth over that. So, not sure who to believe, mate.
Yeah, and Simon's put a good point that I was just going to ask myself. He said, I do wonder if Canberra's policy of recruiting English players is a bad idea. I was going to ask that too, because this is the second one now after John Bateman, and the Raiders actually paid Wigan like $400 to $500K to get them out of contract early to bring them over, and now they're not seeing out their contracts. So is it time that they just start looking at Australian players rather than trying to get all these UK players over? Because it's obviously not working. They get brief glimpses of going well. Bateman was great for a year and then had some injuries and kind of waned a bit. I think Williams was fantastic for the Raiders last year. Hasn't really been on pace this year, and I'm not in their shoes, but it just feels like when the going got tough, they were like, "No, we don't want to do this anymore." It's happens a lot. If you're winning, all the little issues you might have kind of get brushed under. But once you start losing, that's when everything starts coming out, and it makes it a bit more difficult.
Simon's brought up another good point there. Yeah, so stating that Canberra find it difficult to recruit players from other parts of Australia, kind of similar boat to what we're in at the Warriors. It's probably less desirable than being based in a Sydney or Queensland club, and maybe the COVID situation that's taken over has maybe put a shelf life on these guys, because it makes it a bit more difficult with family being stranded on the other side of the world. You know what I mean? It's not like when the Burgess boys were going for South Sydney and they've had a long tenure, but perhaps the COVID thing's not helping that in that regard.
Yeah, possibly. It's not as easy for them to just bring their family over for a holiday or anything like that. So that's definitely the case. And it's very similar to Auckland. It's Australians know that Canberra's probably not the nicest place to live. The weather's not always the best. It's cold and miserable. And Australians and New Zealanders know kind of the same with Auckland, that especially during the league season, it's not really the best weather to be living in. So if I was sitting there and had a contract for Auckland or a contract with the Titans, I'd probably be moving to the Gold Coast. So it's definitely not helpful in the situation, but they've got to find a way around it. And I don't think the UK is working right now. So time will tell. I'm sure by the time we have our show next Wednesday, there'll be a lot more news on this part.
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on it and keep you guys informed. But the next bit of news, we've got Peter Hiku has signed a 2-year deal with the Cowboys. I think it's a good deal for him. He's got some security there. Disappointed to see him go from the Warriors. I think he was quite handy when he was on the field. But it was one of those ones, I think we were talking, Rich, where I wasn't as disappointed to hear him go. Like it's disappointing to see him go, but it's not the end of the world like some of the others have been. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think that going forward, we've kind of got some good young talent coming through who could cover that position. We're talking Rocco Berry and Pompey, who are developing this season. So with more game time under their belt, we might have that covered quite well. And like you said, it's a nice deal for Peter, and he gets to link up with his old coach over there. And might be sad for me to see him go, because like you, I enjoyed he had his ups and downs, but on his day, he loved setting up a try for his winger here at the Warriors, and he gave a lot of assists to both Fusatua and Ken Maumalo when he's played on one side, then the following year switched to the other. So sad to see him go, but I'm sure he'll be a good fit for the Cowboys.
So you're ready to put your money down on either Kyle Felt or Murray Talangi for leading try scorer next year.
Yeah.
Depending on what side Hiku sits over there. But yeah, good luck to him when he leaves. He's played his last game for the Warriors, obviously, due to his injury. But yeah, hopefully he plays well for North Queensland. More Warriors news, though. Adam Pompey, we talked about it last week, that it looked like he was going to sign a deal. It's been confirmed now that he's signed an extension to the end of 2023. I'm still not comfortable where he is playing on the field. I think he's a winger, not a centre. But I think he's either going to grow into the centre role, or they will eventually move him out to the wing, and I think he'll be quite handy.
Yeah, look, either way, I mean, I'm with you. I think at the moment he's probably better suited to the wing, but, could be something he grows into. He could develop some good distribution skills and make a decent centre as well. But it's good. It's good signing for us anyway, to have somebody like him locked in, because I think he's done a pretty decent job when we've needed to call on him this year and last year as well.
Yeah, definitely. And the last bit of Warriors signing news, the Warriors have extended the contract of young hooker, I'm going to get the name wrong, Taniela Otukolo, until the end of 2024. I haven't seen much of his game time playing in the lower grades, but there's a lot of big raps on him. Apparently, when he was playing like SG ball and stuff in Australia, he was head and shoulders above everyone else in the competition, which is, if that is something that can transition into NRL, it's fantastic for the Warriors. It's been no secret that I've said the biggest weakness in the Warriors is their hooker. So if they can get this young kid in eventually, he's been floating on the extended bench for like the last month. So he's obviously doing enough to keep himself in the mix. And I think he's still a little bit away from getting an opportunity, but hopefully when it does come, he takes it with both hands.
Yeah, I'm like you. I haven't really seen a heck of a lot of him in action, but if the reps he has on him are anything to go by, then he'd be nice player to have around. And you never know, like you say, as long as he's in the mix, you never know what happens with injuries and or signing news. I know there was rumors of a player like Jazz Tavanga possibly looking elsewhere. So, all it takes is for someone like him to sign elsewhere or a couple of injuries, and it brings someone like that into the mix. So, I'm sure we'll see what he's made of in time.
100%. And Simon's just mentioned as well, speaking of SG Ball, all the Warriors have a team for the next couple of years. So I think that's I don't know if you're saying that they do have a team, or if you're asking, are they going to? I'm pretty sure they are. And I think they need to. These young kids need to get experience, and not wanting to rubbish the local competition in New Zealand, but they need that top tier stuff in Australia to really get ready for the NRL. We've seen a lot of times we've had young kids that have been playing local footy and they come straight into the NRL. So Simon said, are they going to? I believe they are. I believe that was the goal, at least for the next couple of years. But don't quote me on it. I'll look into it. I'm going to write it down in a little notebook. SG Ball Warriors. Someone else said, to be honest, most people don't even know what the local competition is in New Zealand. That's true as well. I've kind of fallen away, shamefully admitting. Once the Marlins weren't in the Fox Memorial anymore, I kind of lost interest in the Fox Memorial as a former Marlin and a fan. But yeah, there's a lot of work to be done locally in terms of getting the competition up to the right standard and actually getting the competition out in front of people's eyes. And next bit of news we got, I thought we'll probably end up on this for a bit of time, but I was hoping that after last week, all the teams would understand the new crackdown and how serious the refs were, and we'd see a drop down in sin bins, but it actually went up. We got 17 this round, including Victor Radley getting 2 in one game. What were your thoughts on the sin bins, and something that I feel like is going to be a weekly talking point for us?
Yeah. Oh, look, I'm sure we'll touch on some of the individual ones when we wrap up some of the games, but to sum it up, you just want some consistency, because you see some people getting sent off where I know we're old school, Brad, and we probably in our heads watch a game that existed 5-10 years ago, but some of them don't look that bad and having to be sent from the field. And then you look in other games, in our game as well, where we had Jazz Tavanga making contact with the head 2 or 3 times and getting a couple warnings and didn't get sent. So there's a lot of grey areas there where, it's contact to the head, but then the refs are also looking at, is it forceful? Yeah, a lot of grey areas, and it's causing inconsistencies and also people laying down milking penalties, I believe. So,
yeah, I think they need to be more consistent. Like you said, that Warriors game, if it was another referee reffing that game, Jazz probably would have been sin bin twice. Where that was actually his first game. Oh, hey, Mark, see you there. The sin bin's supposed to be contact to the head with force. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think Jazzes were sin bins anyway, but
no, nor did I.
Yeah, like Mark said here, it is such a grey area. I don't mind as long as all the refs are on the same page. We're seeing some refs, Chicken for one, who is reffing the Warriors game this week, which will be great. But Chicken is very sin bin happy. It can be. There was a few in his game last week that I didn't think had force to the head, and he let them go to the bin. So it will be interesting for us and the Cowboys this week. Lachlan Burr is obviously out for the game with another unfortunate one in a row, 2 weeks in a row where he's kind of got a smaller guy coming down low. Tedesco didn't get anyone sin bin this week, which was a surprise. I was kind of putting my money on it. But yeah, I'm lost for words on how they can fix it. They've drawn their line in the sand and said we're not going back. But they need to find a way to make it more understandable for not just the players, the coaches, but for us at home watching it. Because there's a lot of them when they go to the bin and you see the replay and you're like, I don't actually understand why. There's others that are like, I understand 100%. But yeah. Do you have any solutions?
Well, it's like what Mark has said there as well. It's just such a grey area, and it depends on the ref's interpretation. And one referee's interpretation of with force might be different from another, and how do you determine that? And also we get the people slipping into tackles and getting hit in the head, but they're around waist high, like we talked about last week and the week before. Yeah, it's trying to make something simple that's just not simple in my mind. You know what I mean? Very quick game, contact sport. All these players have been trained to go high and grab the ball and stop the offload. So their contact point up until now has always been up around chest and on the ball, and then someone will come in and chop the legs. And then we've made this enforcement halfway through a season, so these teams have all trained the way they've always trained. Different story, you change it pre-season and then they can train for it, but yeah. It'll take some getting used to. It'll take some getting used to, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely an adjustment period. I know going low gives you that opportunity to throw out an offload, but it also allows you to get up and do a quick play the ball, which is, especially with this faster pace, that's what a lot of teams are trying to stop. So it's going to take time. It's going to be interesting. And I'm sure it's going to be something we're going to be discussing every week until they get it right. We were talking pre-show how long we think it's going to be for the Bulldogs game for Jack Hetherington to be sin-binned, because he was regularly getting sin-binned before the crackdown. So it will be interesting to see how long he lasts. Hopefully he keeps his head on his shoulders, but time will tell with that. So our last bit of news before we go into the round 11 review is Blake Green announcing his immediate retirement. Before we go, what shirt I'm wearing? I'm wearing a We Are Warriors shirt that I bought from Oz. I can't remember who I bought it from, but I'll flick you a message after the show when I find the details. It's not a bad shirt. They do them for everyone.
Is that your mate Murdoch Masilla there, top in the middle?
It is. He's front and center to my heart, so it's good that he's in the middle. But it's got all our usual guys on there. It's a real good shirt, so I'll flick you the link and you can get yourself one if you want, Mark. But yeah, sorry. Back to Blake. So yeah, Blake's announced his immediate retirement. He's kind of felt the game's kind of caught up on him a bit, and has decided to call it a day. He's had a long career, been at a lot of clubs. I looked at his stats, and he played the most NRL games for the Warriors, so he's obviously got such a connection with us. It's been a bit of a rocky road with me and Blake Green when he was a Warrior. He was my little... I kicked him a few times when I was doing my match reviews, when I was frustrated at some of the stuff he used to do. But what are your thoughts on him after his career? He's played at some great clubs.
Yeah, he's been kind of almost like just a solid player, you know, like when he was here in 2018 with Johnson alongside him. He had some great form there, and I think that was the role he filled really well, where he just did all the solid things, all the basics pretty well, and allowed a player like Johnson to sort of play a ball running role. But yeah, I think from what comments I've seen him make is that his mind's still there, but his body can't get him into the places where he wants to be on the field anymore. And you can kind of see that, you know, he is probably getting on a bit in terms of 40 years. So, but he's had a good career, you know. So, congrats on the good career.
Yeah, and I haven't heard officially what he's doing now. I know that there were talks before the season started that this would be his last year and he'd move into a coaching role with Newcastle. I assume that's still on the table. So I think that's another good use of his talents. That was something I said a lot here when I was calling for him to be dropped, to give Chanel a chance, saying that he can still be at the club, and the knowledge he could pass on to the young halves. At that time, it was Chanel and Adam Kieran. So I think, if he could do that at Newcastle, especially at the moment when they don't have the Mitchell Pearces and that out there, they really need their young guys to learn as much as they can. And right now, it's clear that Green's probably more beneficial to them off the pitch than on it. So, keeping him in the camp, teaching those young halves everything he can, I think it will help them in the long run, which we're about to talk about their game. They need all the help they can get. You got any news, or do you want to go straight into the review?
No, let's go, mate. We'll go into the review.
Okay. We'll go into the first game, which was on Thursday night, with the Cowboys defeating the Knights 36-20. Cowboys keeping themselves in the hunt for the 8 with what I thought was a comprehensive win. They were going almost a point a minute at the start of the game, and it wasn't until they lost Tomololo and Lachlan Burr to the bin that the Knights actually got in to the contest. What do you think?
I think they were traveling nicely, and the sin bins definitely took an effect there on the Cowboys. You know, had they not lost a couple of people, you think they wouldn't have let the Knights come back into it as much as they did. They did kick back out at the end, and Valentine Holmes looking dangerous again. You know, he's really providing some spark in their attack, but. Yeah, didn't take long. First game of the round, and you already saw 2 sin bins.
I think Valentine Holmes has been playing fantastic for like the past 4 or 5 weeks. He just keeps building. He's obviously seeing the glimmer of state of origin in the near future and trying to get himself back into Queensland. I think if he keeps playing the way he is, he could definitely be on a wing spot for them. And just good to see him playing good footy again after his brief hiatus in the NFL. But the Cowboys were just too strong. Their forward pack were bullying the Knights. They got Murray Tulangi got a hat trick.
Yeah.
He looks very dangerous on the edge, which is a concern for the Warriors this week with a bit of suspect edge D. It looks good for the Cowboys. I think Todd Payton's really turning them around, which is great to see. They are still a chance for the top 8. Hopefully we can stub that out this weekend. For the Knights, I just don't know. They struggle without Ponga and Pearce, as we keep saying. They've got Ponga back this week, so that should hopefully help. But yeah, I'm just not too sure what we can do about them. It's another team that's a top 8 type side that's not doing well, which is good for Warriors fans. So it makes it's still going to be hard as a team to make that 8, but with some of these other teams kind of dipping and diving, it makes your road a little bit easier.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the two key players there are sort of what's doing that to the Knights, though. Mitchell Pearce and Ponga. You take a couple people of that caliber out of most sides, and you'll find it'll be a tough road.
Yeah, definitely. And then that brings us to the first game on Friday with the Warriors defeating the Tigers 30-26. You already mentioned it in our intro, but it was a tense game to watch. There was a bit of ups and downs, and the last couple of minutes were edge of your seat type material.
Yeah, another game that nearly gave me a heart attack. We wasn't a great start for us, and then we bounced back and laid some nice tries on. And Reese Walsh, it's been well documented. He made a couple of errors, but then lots of moments of magic as well. I think 3 try assists and a try. Roger was very good from the wing. Tohu Harris was pretty massive for us. I didn't know what was going on with our front row too much because looking at the stats, only you had Jermaine Tanoa-Brown only collecting like nine running meters. So luckily for people like Tohu Harris, who was busy as ever. Jack Murchie was looking good and made a couple of mistakes in the second half though, which sort of put the pressure on us a bit. But we did well to hold on. It was just a big relief that we held on.
Yeah, I think in regards to the props, I try to pay attention to them as much as I can because they're my love. It was just a strange rotation. Like I think Kane Evans got like 17, 18 minutes at the back end of the game, and that was it. Bunty had like the first 21, and that was it. There wasn't like a constant rotation for them. Not sure why Nathan Brown didn't really discuss it in the post-match, but I've seen comments from Bunty and Evans that they would like more time, and I think you need a bit more time. You need to keep them fresh. Jack Murchie's another example. He is a fantastic player, but when he gets a bit fatigued, that's when the errors start to leak in. It's a tough thing to balance, and I know we're all waiting for Adam Fanor-Blake to come back, which will
that's the key.
Help.
Yeah,
because I think once you got him back, they might get a bit more rhyme and reason to the rotation. And Reese, I know we spent like 3 hours talking about him last week. He did have a couple of little slip ups at the start, and He loves his big cutout pass. It's beautiful. Could never throw one in my lifetime. But there was one early on where he threw it and it almost got picked off, and it was like, oh, but he kept coming back. He still like a few sets later he did the exact same play and we scored a try off it. So I like his confidence. Something doesn't go well, he doesn't drop his head. Like how many times might we've seen that little slip up he had that let the Tigers score their first try, that just rocks a young kid, and they're not the same for the rest of the game. It just doesn't affect him in that way. And like you said, Roger on the wing, I think at the start he was a bit quiet, and then they started finding ways to involve him more. And as soon as he was getting involved more and doing a lot of what he does best, I was like, I'm happy with this situation, having him on the wing and having Walsh out there. It helped a lot that Roger was on the same side as BJ Leilua, because that's just an easy one-on-one situation, which we saw when he broke. He just saw he had BJ in front of him and was like, this is easy, stepped him and was gone. But yeah, I think if I want to put my critical hat on, which I love doing when I do my reviews, but it's just defensive lapses at times. They
Yeah.
were really good. They need to be commended for the fact that they conceded no tries while they were down to 12 men. But it's just there's little brief moments where they just open the door ajar, and it either lets a team into the contest like we saw here, or like in the Manly game, it lets the opposition run away and make the game kind of unattainable anymore. And it's not it's a problem, but it's not the end of the world type problem. I'm definitely happy in the situation the Warriors are, as opposed to other teams that we're going to be talking about later. But yeah, I think ideally at the break time in round 13, I wanted the Warriors to at least be on a 50-50. If they beat the Cowboys, they're at that. They're at 6 wins, 6 losses, and that puts them in good stead. Unfortunately, that first game after the bye is the Storm. But looking at the run after that, there's a lot of easily winnable games. As I like to do, I have no life, so I look at everything I can. I looked at the rest of the draw, and there was potentially 2 or 3 games that I was like, the Warriors probably don't have a chance in these. All the rest are winnable. So if they win at least 80% of those winnables, they're well on track to playing playoff footy.
Yeah, we just need to do a bit better in terms of playing for more of the game. Like you said, we have our lapses, and we haven't been an 80-minute team for most of the season. And if I were to look at the draw, that Tigers game was a very winnable game, and definitely one we should have won. And we almost didn't because we only played for probably 60-odd minutes of that game.
Yeah. But yeah, they showed hard in the last couple of minutes. They put pressure on. I think there was that situation where the Tigers were flicking the ball out to the left, and there was like one defender, and it was like, oh no, they've blown it here. And thankfully there was a mistimed pass which allowed the scrambling cover to come over, and they had to flick it out to the right. And it was just it was pressure that stopped them from scoring. Basically, the Tigers had too much pressure on them and they capitulated, which was great. But yeah, it'd be nice this Friday, hopefully, fingers crossed, that we have a game where it's not so tight at the end. Just breeze out to an easy win so we can just kick back in the second half and relax.
That would be lovely.
Yeah. All right. Evening, Jermaine. Good to see you here. Jermaine. We'll go on to the last game on Friday, which is probably the worst game of the round for me. The Sharks and the Dragons. The Sharks beating the Dragons 13-12. We both picked the Sharks, but I kind of thought there would be a larger margin due to the fact that there were so many players out from the Dragons. But this actually went to golden point. It was that close. But not exciting close. It was boring close. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, well, the Sharks really haven't been traveling very well at all. So, I mean, we tipped them to win, but, I probably should have foreseen a closer encounter, even though the Dragons had injuries. It almost looked to me like neither side wanted to win it, especially towards the end. It kind of looked like both sides were a bit nervous. And even when it went to golden point, the Dragons had the ball and they ran it on the last, which sort of turned the ball over to Cronulla. It was a lot of weird things like that happening in this game. But, I think Townsend slotted the field goal to win the game. He had a couple of field goal attempts charged down earlier on. But yeah, what did you think? It almost looked like that neither side wanted to win that one.
Yeah, well, I think I can understand from the Sharks. I think the Sharks, they're on a 6-game losing streak. I think winning had kind of become foreign to them. So when you get into that situation, they weren't as well-oiled as teams that are used to winning, like your Panthers and that. Like if it was the exact same situation and it was the Panthers there, they would know what to do. They would go like 1-2 out, bang a field goal over, it's over. Just because it's second nature to them because they're winning so often. When you haven't been winning a lot, it's just when you get into that situation, it's just so much harder. And the Dragons haven't been great either. So they were just the same. Chad got the match winner, but got dropped for his efforts this week. But yeah, I expected more out of the Sharks here. I know the Sharks haven't been great, but they were really giving the Dragons on a platter with all the all the players missing, and they just didn't take it, which is fully ruling them out of the top 8 in my mind. I think both of these teams won't be in the 8 by the time we're talking in a couple of weeks.
I think you're bang on when you're talking about winning becomes a habit and losing becomes a habit. You could just see the relief on Chad's face when he kicked that. They looked extremely relieved to win, and yeah, I think they would have taken any kind of win just to snap that streak.
And Simon said, the Sharks still away and Dragons still playing the same ground. Yeah, it was a away game for the Dragons at Netstrata Jubilee, which is their home ground. So it's one of those interesting ones when you have so many teams in the same area. But yeah, we won't have to talk about that game too much more because it was a horrible game to watch. So we'll go straight into the first game on Saturday, which was the Titans defeating the Bulldogs 30-20. Interesting game. The Titans started this game like they have the last 3 or 4, coming straight out of the gates fast, scoring quickly. But the Bulldogs clawed their way back. I think Titans will be happy with this win. They did enough. They were still missing Fafita, which he's back this week, which they'll welcome with open arms. And the Bulldogs, the Bulldogs, it's that same thing. They struggle to win. They don't know what they're doing at times. But I'd be more concerned as a Titan that we just bet the Bulldogs by 10 points. The Warriors haven't played the Bulldogs yet, so I won't go too hard on them there like that, just in case something happens there. I don't want this recording to come back and bite me. But yeah, I think the Bulldogs show a lot of fight, which they have been doing at times. They just lack polish.
Oh, they lack the whole bottle of polish, Brad. They do try, but for me, they're a lock-in for the spoon. Yeah, the Titans started decent, but yeah, their defense, they just seem to leak a lot of tries. They don't have too many problems on attack, but I'm not sure how many points they're averaging against. But for me, watching them, their defense doesn't look like a sort of top 8 team's defense.
No,
yeah.
It's a lot different from the defense we saw from them at the end of last season when they had renowned defense towards the end, and that's why they turned their form around. At the moment, they seem to be a team that just wants to outscore their opposition rather than trying to stop their opposition from scoring. They're like, you can score a try, we're going to score 2 tries to all of yours, which makes it an exciting team to watch, but that doesn't generally work all the time. So it's concerning, I think, for the Titans. I think if you're up against stiffer competition, they would have lost this one.
Yeah, look, I mean, they had a bit of help too with Dylan Napa going to the bin, and they scored a couple tries. Who knows what happens if that didn't happen? And I know we sort of talked about it a bit beforehand, but days gone by that didn't look like too much, and it's almost like Jared Wallace has just laid down for a bit to ensure he got a penalty. And I know Dylan Napa laid into him a bit with he had some choice words for him. What do you think about that scenario?
Yeah, I think we've seen a bit of that, and we're probably going to continue to see it. Where if you get a decent contact on you and you stay down in pain a little bit, it's generally going to result in a bin. It's not good in the eyes of sportsmanship. I don't see anyone in the Warriors being that kind of player. So thankfully, we won't have to deal with the morals of that. But some players do. I think we talked earlier that Michael Innes wasn't a fan of people lying down, but I would put all my money in my bank that if he was still playing, he'd be one of those guys that would be lying on the ground saying, "I got hit high, sir." It's unfortunate, and hopefully they find a way to counteract that. Like if you lay down and then the bunker's looking at it and goes, "There was nothing in it," that you kind of get punished instead. I don't know. That's a grey area too, because it might not look like a big hit, but it might have hurt like buggery. As a lot of people that probably played the game say, it's usually the big hits that don't hurt so much. It's the other ones that really rock you. I've had a few shots that have gone to my head and it's been fine, and I've had a few rib breakers that have kept me in pain for a long time. So yeah, hopefully we don't see too much of that. But yeah, Titans just need to tighten up the D. Welcome for feeder back, and they can keep pushing on. They've got an easily winnable game this week to keep themselves in the top 8 hunt, unfortunately. It would be great to see them with them just above the Warriors on the ladder. It'd be great to see them playing the Storm or someone right about now, but we can't rule that like that. So yeah, Titans fight to live another day, and Bulldogs are just struggling right now. And yeah, I think you said, like you said, showing for the spoon, unfortunately for them. Next game is the only game we got wrong in our tips this week, with the Broncos defeating the Roosters 34-16. Officially retiring doing multis now. I'm done. I'm over it. I don't like. There's always one of these games that are getting me. It was the upset of the round, obviously. I think for the Broncos, I think Pangai Jr. was a monster. He just had his eyes on Sam Walker all night and was turning him into a speed bump. And I think we said, like before the Warriors played the Roosters, that you need to get your monster or your big bopper in your team to be targeting Walker all night. And if you do that, it should derail what he offers on attack. And that's what we saw. It was textbook. He was getting knocked around everywhere. And then when he had the ball in hand, he was making errors that we haven't seen from him before. Throwing intercepts, just not playing what we've come to expect from him. So I feel sorry for him because I feel like he's going to have a lot of pain coming his way the next few weeks with other teams trying to replicate that. So it's up to the Roosters. They've lost some forwards with suspensions this week, but it's up to them to get their boys around them to really protect them. Potentially even trying to get in and make that first contact on these big boys before Walker comes in. So what do you think?
Well, first of all, the Broncos, I thought they played really well and deserved the win. They used the same blueprint that they kind of used when they held a real tight game against the Panthers, where it was just brutal. Payne Haas, Lodge, Tavita Pangai Jr., that's their strength. They've got a big bruising forward pack, and when they sort of just smash up the middle, and then I think off the back of that, they got some opportunities which they took through David Mead and got a couple nice tries. But that's got to be the blueprint for them. You know, they've got big forwards, try and dominate up the middle, keep it simple, and they just need to do that more consistently because they it's in them, but they just don't do it often enough, and that's why they sit where they currently are. But yeah, they kind of played the way they should have played, and they got the results out of it. Like you said, Tavita Pangai targeting Sam Walker. They did what they needed to do. And then you could just see the Roosters getting frustrated, particularly Victor Radley, obviously. You know, we got to address that because he was twice in the sin bin, I think 4 times on report, and he looked like he was seeing red. But yeah, I think it turned the game into a stop-start affair, which more suited the Broncos rather than the Roosters.
Yeah, and the Broncos had a few things go their way. There was 1 or 2 maybe forward passes and stuff. But that's just the way. I think even if you took those away, I don't see the Roosters winning this one. I think the Broncos wanted it more, as cliche as that is. I suppose the biggest thing, the fact that Joseph Suwali made his debut. He played okay. He had some good stats. He went for over 100 meters. He missed a few tackles and things like that, but he is a 17-year-old. I didn't think too much of the debut, to be honest, but we've been blessed to see Reese Walsh, Sam Walker, who are they might be older, they might be 18, but you could put both of them on, put one on the other's shoulders, and they're still not as big as this kid. So I'm sure it's probably not the best game for him to debut and make an impact, because the Roosters just were never in the fight. So it'd be interesting to see what he does coming from this. But I saw, it's more, we talked about it last week about Reese Walsh, how I think it might have been Simon. It was someone asked about, like, is there too much pressure on these young kids? Like, are we going to put the weight of the Warriors on this 18-year-old? The Roosters not themselves are doing it. The NRL are doing it. After this game, the NRL uploaded a highlights package of Suali's game onto their website, onto YouTube and stuff, and it wasn't even that good to watch. It was like 5 minutes of the most boring stuff of my life. And like, that type of pressure is not great on anyone. I was kind of looking to see if they'd do one for Reese Walsh, but they didn't. That would have been a bit more exciting to watch. But yeah, they really got to toe that line. It's early ripe, early rotten type scenario, where if they ride these kids early and then it breaks down, they might not have what it takes to bounce back. From what I've seen from Walsh, it looks like he's got a great head on his shoulders, so he'll be fine. Walker has had ups and downs with performances and keeps coming back, so I think he'll be fine too. We just haven't seen enough from Joseph yet to know what his mentality is when it comes to adversity. So it'll be great to see how he bounces back.
It's got to be one of the most hyped debuts of all time. Kind of didn't help him. And like you said, it's a tough game for him to debut because the Broncos were really switched on and it was just a tough game for him. And they've got a lot of injuries. So he looks to me like in the future he'll be more of a sort of Latrell Mitchell type player, so more of big physical rather than Sam Walker and Walsh, who, look more your fullback halves, demand the ball type of player. So possibly not the best game for him to debut in.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot easier. I'm being biased here as a big person. I think it's a lot more easier to look exciting when you're quick and nimble and you're nipping around everywhere, as opposed to being one of those bigger body guys that has to utilize strength. You're not always going to have a David Fafita type run in you all the time. But yeah, I think Latrell Mitchell's probably the best comparison. I think like what he was at the Roosters as one of their big centers, I think you'll see Suaalii end up not a bad pickup, and he's got a lot of years in him, as long as he can stay healthy and stay on the straight and narrow.
I think you'll find physically this would be a lot higher level than what he's used to running into as well. I bet growing up he's been used to dominating a lot of people smaller than him. Yeah,
100%. And but yeah, if you want to be a young guy that has to transition in the NRL, there's basically 3 teams that I would recommend you doing it for, and that's the Panthers, the Storm, or the Roosters. So he's in capable hands there. It's pretty clear they know what they're doing when it comes to developing players, as opposed to just always buying everyone else's like the Roosters normally like to do. But no, kidding aside, great game for the Broncos. I don't know if it'll stay. They've got a pretty tough match this week. But if they can bring that same intensity, they could make a fight out of it. Will be interesting. So we'll go into the next game on Saturday, which is the Storm, who the Broncos are going to play this week, defeating the Raiders 34-10. We talked about it with the George Williams scenario. There's clearly something wrong with the Raiders. I don't know what's going on, but they're just broken. Is probably the easiest way to say it. They looked okay. They were leading 10-0 in the early stages, and then they just disappeared. And the Storm did what the Storm do and just started scoring willy-nilly. This is the Storm, mind you. This was the Storm without any of their spine. So the fact that the Storm can go up against the Raiders and win 34-10 with none of their spine, I don't know many teams that could claim that. The Roosters are they've lost a bit of their spine, but they still have Tedesco. We haven't seen what the Panthers can do without their spine. We've seen like some players missing, but not all of them. The fact that the Storm can just keep doing this shows how good the Storm are. In my eyes, it's really only the Storm and Panthers that are grand final bound right now. I think there's a massive step between those two teams and everyone else.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. There looks to be a gulf between those two teams in the next tier down. The Raiders started this game well, and I don't think it's the start of games that's their problem, but they do fall away badly and doesn't look to be changing anytime soon. Granted, this was the Storm, but like you said, no Pappenhausen, no Munster, no Jerome Hughes, no Harry Grant, pretty much none of it. Yeah. It was crazy how they can just lose players of that caliber and just it doesn't look like it affects them. Next guy comes in, does the job, and they still put 34 points on a team that were in a preliminary final last year and a grand final the year before. It's remarkable. It's their systems there with Craig Bellamy. They've got something special there where it's you're hard pressed to find an equivalent to that. Maybe looking at rugby union, the Crusaders type of thing. It's pretty special what they got going.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the Storm, but you got to give credit where credit's due. They just it's again that thing we keep talking about. They just have a habit of winning. They know it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's wearing the jersey. They know what the job is to be done, and they do it. And 9 times out of 10, that job will get them the win. So, it's just unbelievable. And the Raiders, I just don't know. The Raiders are helping the Warriors out plenty. The Raiders were one of the guys I had in the top 8. I basically said there were 6 teams that were cemented for the 8, and everyone else was fighting for the last 2. The Raiders are showing that they're one of those teams I had in that 6, so they're gone. It gives more chances for other teams. So there could be a few teams. Obviously, Manly's a team on the rise that weren't in my 8. So they'll take a spot. And you've got the Titans. We'll talk about on the ladder. There's a lot of teams that can fight for it, but the Raiders are running out of chances. They let a few more games like this slip. They're not looking at playoff footy. And that will be interesting. If they get to that point where they don't have a shot anymore, will we see them capitulate or will they come back? And Jermaine said Chance is out for the year 2. Yeah, they announced this week that he is going to need surgery. So he's not back this year either, which is a huge loss for them too.
I think he just had it, didn't he? I think I saw on his Instagram he's just had his surgery. Yeah.
And Simon's also mentioned too, Melbourne Storm have to be at the performance all the time. They're in the city. Yeah, they got so much competition in Melbourne. So they need that cutthroat mentality of performance because it's not the only show in town. If the Storm started losing games and were wishy-washy like so many teams in the NRL are, no one would go because they'd go watch AFL or they'd go watch Union. There's a lot of other stuff there. So they have to keep this mentality, and that's why they've been so successful. They have to fight and scrap for everything they can get in Melbourne because of how popular everything is there. But yeah, we may as well go into the biggest surprising game for me. This is more surprising than the Broncos winning, but the Panthers defeating the Rabbitohs 56-12. It wasn't the result that surprised me; it was the margin. I thought it was an outlier when the Rabbitohs had like 50 put on them by the Storm. I thought that was like just a blip, an accident that came out of nowhere. But they did it again. The the supposedly third best team in the competition had 50 points put on them by numbers 1 and 2. I don't know. I think Wayne Bennett said it best because he was asked why he didn't bring Benji Marshall into this game, and he said he didn't want to embarrass him. Said like their D wasn't working, defense isn't his strongest suit. Why put him out there when it's not going to help? And Panthers, I just don't know. We've run out of things to say. They're just too good. I think Origin's going to be a great test for them because I feel like most of their players are going to be playing Origin. And it'll be interesting to see, but we've seen it before. The Warriors had to play the Panthers when they had both their halves in Origin, and it was an easy win. And then Jerome Luai came out of nowhere. No one knew who he was, and he carved us up. So it'll be a great test for them. It's always in the back of my mind. It's I think Cleary continues to show why he's the best player in the game. He played with the ball on a string, and they just made mockery of the Rabbitohs defense. Matt Burton, the half player being a makeshift center, scored a hat trick. It was in Dubbo, which is his hometown. So it was a great little story for him there. I think we pushed it. I think Simon's got it here as well. Totally wrong when he thought the Panthers would win by 20. I even thought 20 was going to be a bit too hard. I thought it was going to be like a 10 to 12 point win. I thought the Rabbitohs with Latrell Mitchell back were going to come to the contest and actually give them a run for their money, a bit like what we saw from Manly when they fade the Panthers. Just give them like a real hard fight. But yeah, the Rabbitohs just were never in it. I don't know. I think that's basically rubbed them out of being a grand final hopeful. Before the season started, I said it was going to be a Storm Rabbitohs grand final, so it's another prediction of mine that's way off. I don't know. What do you see the Rabbitohs doing, Rich? How do you see them coming back?
It's tough because they've in the past month they've been spanked by 50 by the two top teams. And you really want to be putting up more fight than that if you want to be considered a part of that club. They've had their run of injuries and Latrell come back, probably not, top match fitness, but I think Wayne Bennett summed it up best, saying they just looked like they didn't want to tackle in that game for whatever reason, that they just didn't look like they showed up for the fight. And team like the Panthers, where they're just a well-oiled machine, like we said last week, they pretty much have no weaknesses. They just rolled through them, and they definitely were up for the fight. So, yeah, it was concerning if you're a Rabbitohs supporter to see them drop their heads like that. But, I won't write them off being a top 4 team just yet, because once they get Cam Murray back, I think, he makes a big difference to them. And as we've seen earlier in the year, they're capable of going on a roll when they find form. So they just need to find form towards the right end of the year, and they should still be up there. But, tough for them to bounce back from big losses like that.
Yeah, definitely. And as Simon said, normally a team gets beaten by 50 is ruled out of the grand final. Yeah, they pulled that stat out when they lost 50-0 to the Storm. And I was still like, no, I think they still have a chance. But yeah, having it happen again, they'll still make playoffs, but I don't think they'll go very deep. Probably maybe even a preliminary final. It all depends on the draw, but I think there's a lot of teams licking their lips going, we can really target the Rabbitohs and get a win here, which I think leads us where we're running long in time here, but leads us into the last game of the round. Manly beating the Eels 28-6. We picked this game, even though it was in Bank West. I just had a feeling that the Eels are looking patchy, and they kind of proved us right here. Manly just were another level, as they've been since the Warriors played them into form. It's I thought the Eels at home were going to show a fight, but the fact they scored one try when they've kind of been known for loving to score at Bankwest, they just they just didn't offer anything. And I think Manly, from being my team that I picked to be the wooden spoon, they're looking at top 4 team now. I think there are a few more wins and a few losses to those other teams around them. They're going to be right there, which is unbelievable after the start they had to this season.
Oh, 100%. I think that their start to the season is the worst, if not, one of the worst starts the team's had for a long time. And just shows the impact that Tommy Trebojevic has on them, because they're just swung and done a 180 since he's been back. And all of a sudden, everyone else in the team looks to be playing better. Yeah. And to put away the Eels like that at Bankwest, it's a pretty big statement.
Yeah. I suppose the selfish fans of Manly might not want him to play Origin, due to the fact that they play so well with him. If he's away for Origin, that's a couple of games they might lose. But yeah, fantastic performance from them. So we may as well go straight into our picks. I'll just make sure I can bring up our ladder. We've got our ladder. So we had the same picks, and we only got one game wrong. There we go. Only got one game wrong in the Roosters Broncos clash. So we've got Penrith still at the top, Melbourne at second, Parramatta and the Rabbitohs third and fourth. So the Rabbitohs are starting that slide already. Roosters at fifth, Manly at sixth. I think Manly keep going up. Dragons are continuing their slide. Like I said, they'll slide out of the 8. Titans stay in there. Warriors, unfortunately, are just behind at 9th. Cowboys nipping at the heels there. So that one's going to be a great matchup this week. It's really going to separate. Then you got the Raiders. I've been saying the top 12 have a chance. I think I can basically say 10 and up.
Yeah.
This week. 10 and up this week is who we've got that can have a chance at the finals. I think possibly as early as next week, we could probably say that the top 9 have a chance, depending on who wins that Warriors Queensland North Queensland game. There's probably a bit more life in it for the top 10 teams there. But yeah, Raiders down. So we've got Raiders 11th, Knights 12th, Sharks 13th, Tigers 14th, Broncos 15th, and our wooden spoon is at the moment, and probably for the rest of the year, the Bulldogs. I'd say Raiders down, probably out of the running.
Yeah, probably right there, Brad. I might say down to 12 still, given that we've got a bit of time left, but I don't really see Raiders and Knights turning things around too much anytime soon. So you could be right.
If it was the other way around, where it was Canberra and Newcastle was still up at 9 and 10th, and it was the Cowboys Warriors 11th, 12th, I'd probably give them a chance just due to form. But yeah, I just don't see anything in the Raiders or Knights that can spark them into hitting a few wins and getting themselves back on track, which is why I ruled them out there. But we don't have too many questions because we kind of were answering them all the way through the show. Simon's got his picks already ready. We'll wait till we do our picks before we do that. So we may as well go with the questions that we did for ourselves. You go with yours first because it was your idea.
All right. It's that time of year, Brad, State of Origin. We're warming up and we're all starting to talk about it. For those that watch and don't know, Brad and I sit on opposite sides of the fence for Origin. Brad likes his Queensland team. So with your selector's hat on, mate, I won't get you to do the whole 17-man squad because we'll be here for the whole night. But the all-important spine, a lot of interesting picks you could go with for the Queensland spine. What would you do?
Yeah, it's interesting because the team I would pick, I can't right now because they're all bloody injured. So I think right now, like Harry Grant is your lock for hooker, but he's injured. So I'm going with Reid Marnie from the Eels. I think he's been playing really well despite the dip in form from the Eels. I think he's kind of the best of the healthy bunch. Then my 7 is Dale Cherry Evans. He's kind of a lock-in. He was there last year. He's there all the time. He's the captain. So he's my lock-in at half. 5'8", I would go with Ponga. I couldn't really think of any other 5'8" that I could put in there right now, and I think Ponga would fit in nicely, which would also allow AJ Brimson to come into fullback. So that's the spine I would have. It's not the one I would pick if everyone was healthy, obviously, but I think that's more than enough to beat New South Wales because they're rubbish. So, so I'll switch the question to you, as people may not know. Richie's on the dark side and a New South Wales fan. So, who would be your New South Wales spine? There's a few injuries hitting you guys as well. So,
yeah. All right, I'll start at the back. With fullback, you kind of look at who's the best fullback playing that's eligible for New South Wales, and you'd say Tommy Trbojevic, probably almost the best player in the game, actually. But you've also got Tedesco, and I think you want to fit both those guys in there. So I think Trbojevic is easier to move to a different position. He covers other positions like centre and wing very well as well, whereas I think Tedesco's a pure fullback, so I'd have Tedesco there. Hopefully he can milk a few sin binnings. Moving to the halves, Cleary's a lock-in, that's for sure. So Cleary's your halfback. 6 is a bit tougher because who do you go with? What you know, with someone like Jack Whiten, or the form of Luai and the combination. So for me, I'm not Fittler, but I think, on form you got to put Luai at number 6 as well, and then does that flow into hooker as well, and you take Coruscant. But yeah, I think I'd take Damien Cook in number 9. He's sort of the incumbent number 9 and also the Australian incumbent number 9 as well. So I think he's sort of earned his right to have a go from first for game 1. So yeah, to answer your question, Damien Cook, Cleary, Luai, and Tedesco, and I'd bump Trbojevic out on the wing or in centre. That's what I'd do.
Yeah, it's still not good enough to win, but it's good with what you got. So yeah, that's a couple of weeks away, so that'll be interesting, especially with us on both sides of the fence here. Be good to talk about that when it comes up. Simon's also put a comment out saying he was watching the NBA and they have a play-in round before the playoff teams from 7 to 10 play for the 8th and 7th spot. Saying like, is that something the NRL could do? Kind of like where you have like your top 6 and then maybe your next 4 battle it out for the last 2 spots. It could be. I think that probably will end up being something they look at doing when they've got the extra teams involved, when there's a bit more, like if you've got 17, then 18 teams and you still got a top 8, they'll probably look at a way to try to incorporate more people into the playoffs. I don't mind it. If it was like, if you had a shot, if you were 10th and you had a shot at potentially getting into the playoffs, it'll probably help me as a Warriors fan a bit more often. Tigers would finally get to play playoffs footy because they're always 9th. But yeah, it could be something they like to change. They're not shy in changing things up. So who knows what will happen? What do you think, Richie?
Yeah, I can see an argument for that. I can also be cynical and say, if you're finishing around 10, do you even really deserve a shot? Yeah, I kind of like it the way it is.
Some people say that about finishing 8th, though, as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, that's a fair comment because some people think sort of top 5 or 6 is your elite, and then anything down from there is just making up numbers. So, yeah, I'm not too dissatisfied with the way it is at the moment, and I'm happy for that to continue.
Yeah. Cool. So we may as well get into our picks for the Indigenous round, starting tomorrow night with the Broncos versus the Storm. It didn't take me too long to pick this one. I've gone with the Storm. What about you?
Same here. Too hard to tip against them. Broncos had a good win, but too hard to tip against the Storm.
Yeah, and then first game on Friday, we've got Cowboys versus Warriors up in Townsville. I've picked the Warriors here. It's a head and heart type situation, but I think the Cowboys without Tomalolo and Lachlan Burr might not be as strong as they normally would be. And as long as the Warriors let Walsh do what he does and they shut down Holmes, they should come away with the win.
Yeah, I think we've got enough to beat the Cowboys. I went Warriors as well. Provided we turn up and play for the majority of the game, I think we can account for them.
Cool. And next game, or the last game on Friday, is Tigers-Dragons. I've gone with the Tigers here. I think the Dragons are still in that habit of losing at the moment, and the Tigers continue to bring it to every team they face. They might not get across the line, but they're real close, and I think they'll get the edge here.
Me too. I went Tigers. I think Dragons are still missing a few people this week. And I think, they really struggled against the Sharks, who were really struggling. So, I think the Tigers will probably bounce back. They've been a bit up and down. So, I'll give it to the Tigers.
And then the first game on Saturday, probably the hardest one to pick of the round. We've got the Panthers versus the Bulldogs.
Toss of a coin, this one, eh?
Yeah. I think I looked at the TAB and they were they were basically
$0.001 or something like that.
Yeah, you're basically paying if the Panthers won.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting game. I think easy win for the Panthers here, obviously. I'm just hoping that it's not an embarrassing game for the Bulldogs. I hope they really show some passion. Don't want to demean them by any means. But the Panthers have been putting big scores on some good teams. So I'm scared to think what might happen. But hopefully it's a good contest. Next game on Saturday is the Rabbitohs versus the Eels. Despite the bollocking the Rabbitohs got last week, I'm actually picking them here. I think they're going to bounce back. And I think the Eels still look patchy. So I'm going with the Rabbitohs.
Yeah, it was the battle of the bounce backs this week. Which team bounces back? I went Rabbitohs as well. I think another week under the belt for Latrell Mitchell back in the side. Cam Murray comes back this week as well, and he's a pretty big inclusion. He seems to sort of lift their performance whenever he plays. So I think Wayne will be into them big time this week as well. Might give them the edge. Yeah.
And then the final game on Saturday is the Roosters Raiders playing at the Warriors home ground, the Central Coast. I've gone with the Roosters here. I've just lost all confidence in the Raiders. So I think even without Victor Radley and Angus Crichton and the likes, I think the Roosters will still be too good for a Raiders team that can't play 80 minutes.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of the Panthers and Storm where you can't tip against them. The Raiders are a nightmare tip right now, so I went Roosters as well. Just on the basis I can't see the Raiders doing anything anytime soon.
Yeah, and then the first game on Sunday is Sharks versus Titans. I've gone with the Titans here. They both got a win last week, but Sharks were far from convincing, and David Fifita's back. So I'm expecting a big game out of him.
Yeah, took the words out of my mouth, mate. I think we're heading for the same picks this week.
Yeah. And then, the last game of the round is Knights Sea Eagles. Easy game to pick here. Sea Eagles.
Yeah, Sea Eagles.
Yeah.
Irrepressible form right now.
So, we have gone for the same picks, which is good. It means you're going to be in the lead again. As always, I'm never going to bloody win. Simon, before we go on, we've got Simon's picks. So he's picked the Storm by 10, the Cowboys by 4, Dragons by 4, Panthers by 24, Rabbitohs by 6, Roosters by 8, Titans by 8, and Seals by 6. So basically the same picks, except you're going with the Cowboys there and broken my heart. But hopefully we're right in that one. But yeah, as long as it's a good contest that the Warriors win, I'll go to bed very happy. So we haven't done it in a while because we've always gone over. We're going over again tonight, but the soccer show isn't on until 11 p.m. So we do have a bit of leeway. So we should do some Super League news so they're not completely forgotten. The only news I really had from the week was Greg Inglis is out for 8 weeks with a hamstring injury. Big blow for Warrington there. But I haven't been able to watch a lot of his games, so I haven't seen how much of an impact he's had on their performances. They're still getting the wins, so big loss for them, but hopefully he bounces back and gets back out there because I know he's really enjoyed coming back and playing footy.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't have to medically retire.
Again. And then it happened a few weeks ago, but we haven't had time to mention it. So we had the Challenge Cup games, the quarterfinals. So I've got the results here. Warrington defeated Catalan 16-6. St. Helens defeated Huddersfield 23-18. Hull FC defeated my Wigan Warriors 20-10. And then Castleford just scraped through and beat Salford 19-18, which takes us to semi-finals, which will happen on the 5th of June. We've got Hull FC versus St. Helens and Castleford versus Warrington. So that'll be an interesting round because that's around the same time as Origin. So we'll get to talk about Origin and the results of the semi-finals for Challenge Cup. And then last weekend's round 7 games, we had Catalans defeating St. Helens 20-16. Warrington defeated Castleford 38-14. Wigan got back to winning after losing the Challenge Cup, defeating Salford 17-16. Hull FC defeated Leeds 18-12. Wakefield defeated Hull KR 28-12. Huddersfield defeated Lee 44-4. The Wigan stuff will be interesting. I'm keeping an eye on it with the George Williams situation because I know the rumours were that George Williams was going to go back to Wigan with Jackson Hastings leaving. It'd be interesting to see with COVID if he can go back early and go back and play for them now, or if it's going to be a next year situation. I'll keep investigating. Obviously, the George Williams thing is going to keep blowing up for us to talk about next week anyway. But we'll see more news on that. But round 8 actually starts tomorrow in the UK. It starts to Thursday for them, which isn't Thursday for us. And I see Simon said Catalans had a crowd at the match. That's great to hear. Yeah. Good to see them get some crowds back. But yeah, this round, it starts with Salford versus Warrington on the Thursday. Friday's got Castleford versus Leeds and St. Helens versus Hull FC. Then Saturday it ends with Catalans versus Wigan, Wakefield versus Huddersfield, and Hull KR versus Lee. So yeah, some good matchups there. Catalans versus Wigan's kind of a game of the round type scenario for me as a biased Wigan fan. But yeah, some good matches there. So hopefully we'll be able to incorporate more Super League back into the show. Richard likes to talk too much, you see, so he goes over our time most of the time. And hopefully Reese Walsh doesn't have an amazing game again, so we spend half an hour talking about him this week.
And I will.
Yeah. But that's it for tonight. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in and joining us on the Standoff with Brad and Richie for your weekly update on rugby league. Remember to tune in to our show next week at 8 p.m. here on Facebook or at your convenience on iHeartRadio. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. Nice comment there from Jermaine. Cheers for the love there.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Your engagement's really good. So it makes a nice breakup of me and Brad just talking to ourselves.
Yeah, Richard's sick of me talking to him about league all the time. It's been like 14, 15 years of me talking his ear off about the league. So great that I can do it to other people now. So cheers for that. So good night. Good night to you too. Anything else you want to say, Richie, before we sign off?
No, yeah, just again, cheers to all you guys for tuning in and throwing your input our way. It's it makes it fun for us. Hope you all enjoy the round of league, and I hope Simon's Warriors Cowboys pick is incorrect.
Yeah, we'll definitely let him know about it next week if he's wrong. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and until next week, good night.